Thank you, George. I share your sentiments. We were just down at the Boston Ski and Snow Sports Show this weekend, and there is great enthusiasm for the other thing that our parks are involved in winter, so we'll hope that it does turn to more inclement weather soon. And I do want to thank you for your guidance in the last 10 or 11 months. It's been invaluable as I come to better understand what parks are and the role they play. First thing I should do is honestly acknowledge the allocations that the park system has gotten in the last 2 to 3 years. We are grateful for some capital allocations, which really I think were precipitated by the discussion started by the SB5 Study Commission as it related to parks, which certainly is the genesis of what we are here to discuss today. But those are meaningful. In the fiscal biennium of 08 and 09, we got $6 million, which was fantastic, and certainly a big sum compared to what we had. And then in the current biennium of fiscal year 10 and 11, we have no less than $19 million to devote to parks and the needs of parks. So I certainly would be remiss if we didn't acknowledge those amounts. I do correlate them with just the heightened awareness we've caused for parks, certainly no more so than what we did this summer with the previous draft of the plan, which did certainly elevate people's awareness of parks and our challenges. Part of that $6 million in the fiscal year 08 and 09 allowed us and afforded us the opportunity to pursue this strategic plan and the development of the capital plan, all in pursuit of a better park system. So with that, I'll shed light on the plan in just a few minutes. The other one that's meaningful is the creation of SPAC, which came out of the SB 74 legislation, and it called for a state park system advisory council to help us, in fact, in advisory capacity. It also created the Bureau of Historic Sites. Both were significant steps, and both were, I think, really heralding and precipitating, the discussion that's led to hopefully some additional changes. But today I'm here to discuss the strategic plan, and I wish to speak to really its contents. I'll spend a minute on what we have done as it relates to the exercise, what the plan contains, and then where do we go from here, which is really, in my mind, the definition of the word strategic, which is you know where you are, you know where you want to go, how do you get there? In a simple sense, what we've done, we have assessed the parks very thoroughly, and we've assessed them as they currently stand, trying to get an inventory of just their physical attributes, their relationships to communities, and so on. We've conducted research, and I'm glad to say during the months of August and September, we actually conducted no less than 1,649, I think, interviews with actual park users, and that's the first time we've really had statistically relevant information to allow us to shoot, and have a focus that's sharp. At the same time, we created an impact study for the entire park system. There had been numbers put together on behalf of what Hampton Beach contributes to the economy, sort of at the Seacoast region, but certainly not against the entire state. So we're thrilled to have had the help of Russ Tebow and his expertise to, in fact, create an economic impact study. We've identified the opportunities, and through a thorough examination of strengths and weaknesses, threats in the marketplace and the conditions in the marketplace, we have actually set about to identify opportunities to say these are some of the things that we can pursue, and set about to understand how to best do that. The other one that's meaningful and very important is we did garner just public opinion and made good use of that input. So we certainly got some along the way. We got more in the, during the summer months after the initial draft, and that information I think has been reflected very effectively in the version that you'll see today. When it gets to what the plan contains, in its simplest sense, I think the plan creates a clear description of current or future challenges. It makes a case for the economic impact that the states provide, which is obviously important, and it sets a roadmap for the recovery, which is how are we going to go about what we do in a prioritized fashion to have it be the most vital recovery possible. It does examine funding, it does examine the legislation that has impacts on our operation, and it does, in fact, just look at the operations in its simplest sense. I guess in reverse order, I'll shed some light on each of those topics. As it relates to operations, in no uncertain terms, I and others in our department should take the responsibility for perhaps not having maximized all the opportunities that are out there. Not a perfect park system, certainly falls short on occasions, but we do acknowledge that that is room to improve. To do so, I think we're going to have to pursue new partnerships. Those could be public or private, and those certainly are detailed in some of the goals. It's going to cause us to just think differently and perhaps maybe more progressively, more aggressively as it relates to who could help us, when could they help us, and where could they help us. It's going to call for more collaboration and new collaboration between DRED, the Friends groups. We have lots of affiliate groups, whether they lease from us or are tenants or have other interest in the parks. And it certainly will create a new and more meaningful dialogue with a lot of the host communities in which these parks sit. As it relates to legislation, I think we've effectively made a case for change, which was certainly an objective that I saw the day I embraced the plan. We'll have to build, I think, better political support and ask these communities to step forward and to step up. It's going to take some real heavy lifting, but my sense is there's potential for that, and it's a question of just realizing that very potential. Funding, certainly a big piece in our estimation. The parks, and to the extent I've been able to assess it, have been chronically underfunded. What I mean by that is revenues, despite our best intentions, do chronically fall short of the expenses caused or needed to run the parks. I've seen that as far back as the 1960s, not just in recent era. But since the advent of self-funding, we did, to the best of our ability with our numbers, come up with an average shortfall in the past 20 years, which is what it has been since 1991 when the self-funding started. But we have fallen short by roughly about $404,000 on an annual basis, again, averaged across those 20 years. If you include ski operations, which is a big part of the division, if you do not include ski operations, that number falls to about $225,000. So that's across the last 20 years, average amounts that we have fallen short as it relates to revenues against the expenses required to provide those very services. The essence of that, in my mind, without oversimplifying, is that we sort of started in a hole when we went to self-funding in '91. I'm here to confirm that unfortunately we still are in a bit of a hole. It's not daunting to the extent to say we can't improve, but nevertheless it does cause some realities when it relates to our daily operations.